Hello everyone, and welcome back. In this video, we're continuing our series I call HeroQuest in depth, and in this video, we're specifically going to be talking about the spells kind of in detail for all of the heroes. And so this goes along well with the videos on player strategy and then also playing effective heroes. So this time we're going to be taking a look at the different spells in the game because we found that some of them are extremely useful and get played a lot, and some of them are more situational and don't get played as much. So I would also be very interested in knowing what type of experience you have had with all of these spells in order to find out if they're similar to the ones that we've had, or if you've come up with different ways to use them and some of them are more effective in your games than perhaps they have been in ours. So let's go ahead and take a look at spells in detail here, and we're going to start with the fire spells. So the fire spells contain the spells Fire of Wrath, Courage, and Ball of Flame. And we found that this is one of the spell lists or spell categories that the wizard frequently takes, so to give the wizard some direct damage spells, which helps to augment him because he only has one attack die anyway. So it makes, we think, a little bit less sense for the elf to take these because the elf has 2 combat dice. He's got his short sword. So in many situations, it might make more sense if the elf is not going to be casting a spell to go ahead and attack with those 2 attack dice and then let the wizard use either Ball of Flame or Fire of Wrath. So Ball of Flame and Fire of Wrath, clearly these are spells that get used a lot because they're direct damage spells and they are attack spells. So those are very useful and get used a lot. Now, what about Courage? Courage says, this spell may be cast on any one hero, including yourself. The next time that hero attacks, he may roll 2 extra combat dice. This spell is broken the moment the hero can no longer see a monster. We use this spell quite a bit, and of course it's most useful when you're in a situation where you think you're going to be dealing with monsters for a while. So sometimes this spell actually doesn't get cast if the heroes are going into a room and are expecting to be able to clear it out rather quickly, because playing conservatively, the wizard would not want to cast this spell in a situation where he thinks that there's only going to be one basically opportunity in order to use this spell. So actually we found that this spell is most useful in situations where there are a lot of monsters that are coming around, for instance, a corner or down a hallway, and you can have one of the characters, often the barbarian, to block off one of the corridors while there's a whole bunch of monsters coming down. Actually, it works best really down long corridors, because that way if you've got monsters stacked up along the corridor and you've got a hero standing here, you know that even when one monster drops and the next monster drops, the hero is going to be seeing monsters down the corridor for a long time. We've used the spell in those situations quite a bit. I do think this spell is a little bit strange as far as its rules go because it has an effect that operates not exactly on a turn. It says, this spell is broken the moment the hero can no longer see a monster. And so that's an opportunity for Zargon to kind of manipulate this spell. Because even if a monster steps around a corner, for part of the turn, and then moves back and makes another attack, well, technically, there is a moment there that the hero could not see a monster. And so that would break the spell. But the more I've thought about this spell, that kind of breaks what I think the spirit of this is. I think this spell should be rewritten so the spell is broken if at the end of a turn the hero can no longer see a monster. That would put it back on the hero, and it also means the end of the turn. So the hero wouldn't have to worry so much about, well, I just killed this monster in front of me, but there is another one around the corner or down the hallway or, in the other room that I might be able to get to. But as soon as I hack apart this one that's in front of me, the spell's going to be broken. So if you change this spell so that it was at the end of the hero's turn, that would allow the hero to do something brave and courageous, like this spell is intending, is named for. It seems like it should be intending to be. The hero hacks down a monster. The hero then can roll to move, and if the hero can then charge into another area where another monster can be seen, I would think this spell should be able to continue. So I think this is kind of a little bit of a strange spell. It would increase the spell's utility greatly. Now, maybe too much, maybe it wouldn't be balanced, but I kind of don't think so. I think that this spell would continue to be balanced if it were more generous to the heroes in the time that it would last. What do you think about that? I'd be interested to know your opinion. Please put that down in the comments. I'd like to know what you think. So the next up, let's consider the earth spells right here. So the earth spells have the following. It has Pass Through Rock, Rock Skin, and Heal Body. Now, Heal Body is the first of the ones that we've gone over, which is the healing spells. So that's very important. That one gets used all the time. So the Heal Body restores 4 body points to you or to another hero. Very useful. Rock Skin. This is also one that gets played basically every game. The spell may be cast on any one hero, including yourself. That hero may throw 1 extra combat die when defending. The spell is broken when the hero suffers 1 point of body damage. See, so here's a situation where this spell can endure for quite a while. I mean, theoretically, it could endure all game. If you cast it on yourself at the very beginning and then never took a body point of damage, then it would endure the entire game. And that seems to be the best strategy with this spell. If you've got this spell and you are in a situation where you're not doing anything else, you might as well cast a spell. You might as well cast this on yourself and give yourself additional defense that's just going to last for whenever you happen to get yourself in a situation when you need it. And when are you most likely to have a turn that's just available to you to cast a spell where you're not having to deal with monsters? Well, basically at the very beginning of the game. So it makes sense to cast Rock Skin very early in the game and go ahead and get it on you so it can be doing its protection early on. Might as well not lose the hit point early on if you can help it. Now, Pass Through Rock. This spell may be cast on any one hero, including yourself. That hero may then move through walls on his next move. He may move through as many walls as his dice roll allows. Caution. There are shaded areas on each quest map which indicate solid rock. If a hero ends his move in one of these areas, he is trapped forever. This is definitely a situational spell, although it is used quite a bit. It's often used when there's a room that is jammed up with the door for some reason, and we really need to be able to get additional heroes into the room. Well, someone passing through rock is basically the way to do that. There is a disadvantage if it's going to be, for instance, if the wizard has this, or the elf, the character who has this, if they cast it on themselves, if they're going in to try to help out people inside a room they can't otherwise get in, they're going to pass through rock and come in, the back way. Well, that means that they won't have an attack on the turn they come through the wall. So that kind of leaves them hanging there to have to take an attack from the monsters before they get around to their turn again. If this is cast on another hero, either that's later in the lineup or earlier in the lineup, and you're going to wait all the way till the next turn, in the next round, because this just says the next move. It doesn't have to be that round. Then the hero can walk in and also make an attack. So that may be a better tactical decision in many cases. You may not want the wizard to go and walk through the walls and then have all the monsters turn around and attack and kill the wizard because he can't cast another spell and he can't attack. That wouldn't be good. We've actually found that the Earth set of spells, is the one that is most frequently taken by the elf, because, as I've said in another video, it does make the most sense, we believe, for both the elf and the wizard to have one of the healing spells, because that way you've got 2 different heroes with 2 different spells. They could potentially cast them both on the same round if things get really bad. But then also, and I don't know if I mentioned this the last time, also this time you're not in danger of losing them both if one character dies. If the wizard has both healing spells, and then for some reason the wizard is taken out in a single round, that would be a huge, huge win for Zargon, because not only would it take out a character, but it would take out another 4 body points in spells that never got cast, and that would be huge. So it's better from that perspective as well for the heroes to divide up the healing spells. So if the elf gets this one, the elf should cast Rock Skin on himself or herself very early on in the game, because the elf is going to be the tertiary fighter anyway. You're expecting the elf to be up close to monsters doing damage, or and also potentially taking damage. So the elf gets Rock Skin, the elf has magic for healing, and then also gets the Pass Through Rock, which probably could be cast on another hero, or actually we often have the elf cast Pass Through Rock on herself. So next up, let's go over the water spells right here. So water has Water of Healing, Sleep, and Veil of Mist. Now, once again, Water of Healing, that's one of our healing spells, frequently used, basically every quest. So Water of Healing, that one's a very useful spell. Let's go over the sleep spell right here. The sleep spell says, this spell puts a monster into a deep sleep so it cannot move, attack, or defend itself. The spell can be broken at once or on a future turn by a monster rolling 1 red die for each of its mind points. If a 6 is rolled, the spell is broken. It may not be used against mummies, zombies, or skeletons. Chaos Warriors, femurs, gargoyles. These are very frequently the target of the sleep spell. This spell is extremely powerful because it does not allow the monsters to defend. Not being able to roll defense dice, that really hurts those large monsters like Chaos Warriors and, well, mummies and gargoyles. But this spell is also interesting because it depends on where the wizard is in the lineup of the heroes, because it says that this spell may be broken at once or on a future turn by a monster rolling 1 red die. So that means that when the wizard casts this spell, Zargon does get an immediate roll to see if it's broken. So if the wizard is the one who's going last in the lineup, and then after the wizard's turn, it's Zargon's turn, Zargon basically has 2 rolls in a row, 2 tries directly in a row to try to break the sleep spell. If the spell isn't broken, then the monster will just stand there during Zargon's turn and then won't be able to defend itself during the entire next round of the heroes. But you are giving Zargon 2 chances to break this spell before it's able to do what you want it to do as a hero. So this spell, when it's in the hands of the wizard, is actually an argument for the wizard to be going earlier on in the lineup. Because if the wizard were first in the lineup, the wizard could cast this spell on one of the, the gargoyle or the chaos warrior or whatever. If the wizard's first, he's going in the door, opening the door, looks in, says, uh-oh, I see a chaos warrior, gets to a place that's going to be able to be defended, cast this on the chaos warrior. Hopefully it takes effect because Zargon gets that immediate chance to try to dispel the spell. And then, if it's not dispelled and the monster is asleep, then the barbarian, the elf, and the dwarf can all go into the room and attack monsters who cannot defend themselves. And that's basically, doesn't guarantee that the monster is going to die, but there's a pretty good chance of it. So I think this spell has the odd characteristic that its value depends on where the wizard is going during the lineup. And when it's in the hand of the wizard, it argues for having the wizard earlier in the lineup. Okay, Veil of Mist. This spell may be cast on any one hero, including yourself. On the hero's next turn, he may move unseen through spaces that are occupied by monsters. This one we found isn't all that often used. It certainly has its reasons to be used. It's a very situational spell. Sometimes there are monsters that are jamming up a doorway or something and Zargon's not moving them, and so Veil of Mist allows a character to be able to go through that. And so that's useful, but I would say it's one of the ones that, it's not played every game. It's one of the least useful because it's most situational. Okay, let's take a look at the air spells. These are next. So air contains Swift Wind, Genie, and Tempest. Okay, let's look at Tempest first. Tempest says, this spell creates a small whirlwind that envelops one monster of your choice. That monster will then miss its next turn. So this spell is very similar to Sleep in that it's basically kind of, its goal is to remove a monster from contention for a round, but it's got a couple of notable differences. First of all, and most notably, Tempest doesn't have any way for Zargon to dispel this spell. There's no save of any kind, like there is with Sleep, that has the immediate save. Tempest is just, I play this, the monster is caught in the Tempest, and there's nothing that Zargon can do about it. And that monster misses its next turn. So it's like basically asleep for a turn, except for the fact that this Tempest does not say the monster cannot defend. So the monster can still defend himself when he's got a Tempest on it, but it cannot defend itself with a Sleep on it. But that's the trade-off. Sleep you can potentially dispel, Tempest you can't. So this spell is also used quite often, but actually this one is kind of most useful when the wizard is later in the lineup, if the wizard is later in the lineup. Although the heroes could simply forego trying to attack that monster, and that would be the best strategy. If there's several different monsters, one of them has a Tempest on it because the wizard is earlier on the lineup, well, that monster is not going to be able to attack you on Zargon's turn. That's guaranteed. So if there are other monsters that have to be dealt with, go ahead and deal with those monsters because this one hasn't degraded its defensive ability at all. Go ahead and deal with the other monsters. Zargon won't be able to move it on Zargon's turn and then handle it as usual on the next round. So Sleep and Tempest are a very interesting kind of pairing. Okay, let's look at Swift Wind next. This spell may be cast on any one hero, including yourself. Its powerful burst of energy enables that hero to roll twice as many red dice as normal the next time he moves. This is another one that's pretty situational, and it might actually be the one that's cast, I think, in general least. There are situations where it's very important, and so it's nice to have it when that situation comes up. But I think it's one of the least cast spells, generally speaking, in our games. And that has to do with the fact that there really isn't a time constraint on the heroes in HeroQuest. The heroes are free to move around, take extra turns to really get themselves in position before they open extra doors, and they're not really under a kind of clock for most things where all of a sudden being able to move twice as far, perhaps with twice as many movement dice, doesn't really come up all that often. Sometimes it has, but in general, the lack of time keeping and a time constraint on the game, I think, prevents this one from being used a lot more. And finally, Genie. Okay, Genie. This spell conjures up a genie who will do one of the following. Open any door on the board, revealing what lies beyond, or use 5 combat dice to attack any monster within your line of sight. I don't think this spell has ever been used to open a door in one of our games in all the years. It might have been used to open a door once, and I'm not really sure if it was used to open that door once or if we just thought about using it to open that door and then we didn't and did something else. So most all the time, this is the spell that the wizard holds on to be the heavy-hitting combat spell at the end of the game to try to take out the big bad guy at the end. Being able to open a door and see what lies beyond has not been all that useful. I think the time that it might have been cast, or maybe we were thinking about casting it, was in a situation where the heroes were very low on body points and were almost dead and were trying to make a decision about which way to go, this way or that way, which one's actually going to be the best door for them to open up. And so I think the situation was that we're very low on hit points, didn't want to have to go into any more rooms than we had to, and so may have used Genie to open up one of the room's doors, look inside, see what was there, and then make an assessment about whether that door, had the ultimate goal in it that we were looking for, or whether then we needed to hightail it away from whatever monsters were in there and go into another room. That's very situational again. It might have happened once, or we just talked about doing it. I'm not sure. But regardless, over all the games throughout the years, it was used as a combat spell. Has that been your experience? Have there been situations or games that the wizard or the elf has been using Genie to open doors? If there have been, I would be very interested in knowing, because I'd just be interested to know the different gameplay experiences that we're having. But that's been my experience. Okay, so that is a look at all of the spells for the players in the HeroQuest game. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please come back to my channel. I've got videos on board games, fantasy, action figures. We built a 3D jumbo HeroQuest board. Please go to my channel. I've got all my content arranged by playlist. Check out the playlists. Get into what you're interested in. I look forward to seeing you in more videos, and until then, happy gaming.